Hi, I'm Deedee Williams in LaGrange, Georgia. Lafayette had an idea. It obsessed him. It was a great idea, even though it didn't work out. He was in Cadiz, Spain, preparing for a joint Franco-Spanish attack on England. He received news of a preliminary treaty ending the American Revolutionary War. On February 5th, 1783, he wrote a long 8-page letter of congratulations to General George Washington. In the middle, with no warning, he uploaded a blockbuster of an idea. What if he and Washington would purchase an estate, hire slaves to work it, pay them for their work, teach them to read and write, prohibit whippings, treat them decently, and then free them? With Washington's prestige, it could become a model to be produced across America. Here was an emancipation proposal. If it worked, and why would it not, thought Lafayette, he would extend the reach of the project to French colonies in the West Indies. This was exciting, Washington replied on April 5th, 1783. It was so laudable a work, he said, and striking evidence of the benevolence of your heart. They would talk details later. A year later, Lafayette visited Washington at Mount Vernon for 2 weeks. Surely they talked about it, but we don't know the content of those conversations. What we do know is that Lafayette could not let it go. He wrote Washington on February 6, 1786, almost 3 years later, "Another secret I entrust to you, my dear General, is that I have purchased for 125,000 French livres a plantation in the colony of Cayenne, and I am going to free my Negroes in order to make that experiment which you know is my heart's passion." This project was no secret. Lafayette enlisted none other than King Louis XVI to be a part. A year earlier, on June 6, 1785, Lafayette wrote a letter to the king outlining the project design. They would go together and purchase property in Cayenne, French Guiana, South America. There, they would pay slaves, educate them, and free them. And when the king failed to follow up, Lafayette decided to forge ahead on his own. On December 29, 1785, Lafayette bought 2 plantations in Cayenne. One was called Maripa, and the other St. Regis. A third plantation, La Fromagée, he renamed Les Drians in honor of his wife. The whole of it came to be named La Gabrielle, since it sat at the foot of a mountain of the same name. On May 10, 1786, Washington wrote a reply to Lafayette. He called the project generous and noble proof of your humanity. Would to God a like spirit would diffuse itself generally into the minds of the people of this country, but I despair of seeing it. Washington knew slavery was a blight on what America promised and professed to be. When he died in 1799, Washington's will stipulated freedom for all of his slaves. Lafayette likely influenced that decision. Jean-François de Richepre was the manager of the property. He was to implement Lafayette's ideals. It was an uphill battle. Locals opposed the project. It was forbidden by law to teach slaves to read and write, so the work was hard. By the late 1780s, Lafayette had become embroiled in French politics. Day-to-day decisions fell to Adrienne. She was an attentive steward. But it all crashed on August 19, 1792, in the terribly dark days of the French Revolution. Although Lafayette narrowly escaped the guillotine, he was soon captured and imprisoned in Austria. The French state confiscated his property, all of his property, including La Gabrielle. It was renamed the Habitation of Spices. On return after 5 years in prison, Lafayette was financially broke. He did negotiate a deal whereby the state would pay him 140,000 francs for the land at Cayenne, which was near what he had invested. But there was this catch. On May 20th, 1802, Napoleon, now empowered as emperor, had reinstated slavery. Thus, as part of the deal, Lafayette would be required to cede all his rights insofar as they affected the farm laborers. He refused the deal, saying, "I declared that I would not cooperate in any kind of slave system." Lafayette's grand idea came to nothing in the end, but not for want of trying. His motto was "Cure none," or "Why not?" La Gabrielle was a good example of his motto in action. Lafayette inspires. Happy birthday, Marquis de Lafayette.